If it's clear, sure. Okay, I'm getting the signal that we're live and good to go. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, April the 27th. Call the meeting to order at 6:30, and we will begin, as we always do, with the playing of our national anthem. We would also like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, the Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous histories and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. Does any member of council have a pecuniary interest that they need to disclose for this evening? Seeing none, okay. Can I have a motion then to adopt the minutes from our April 13th council meeting that are included in the agenda? Moved by Councillor Fegan. Is there a seconder for those? Seconded by Councillor Wagner. Any discussion on those? All in favor? That's carried. All right, the first item on this evening's agenda is our planning public meeting. And tonight's public meeting is being held under Section 34 of the Planning Act, and it is to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment for the lands known municipally as 305 Colonel Phillips Drive in the town of Shelburne. The purpose and effect of the amendment being sought is to add a site-specific provision to permit a daycare center on the subject property, whereas the current zoning bylaw does not permit this use in the C3 zone. I will now ask the clerk to provide the method of notice for tonight's public meeting.
Notice of tonight's public meeting was advertised in local media sources. Notice has been posted on the town's website, and notice was provided to property owners within a 120-meter radius of the subject property.
Okay. So this evening we will receive a presentation by the town's planner. Following that presentation, there'll be an opportunity for members of council as well as any members of the public who have joined us to ask questions and provide comments on the application. The clerk will also accept written submissions, and all submissions received, written and oral, will be given consideration by this council prior to any decision being made on the application. So with that, I will turn it over to our planner, Steve Weaver.
Thank you, Mayor Mills and members of council. I've shared my screen. Can you see the presentation?
Yeah.
Perfect. So as mentioned, tonight's public meeting is regarding a zoning bylaw amendment application filed by Blue Puzzle Child Care Center. We have a representative for the applicant. Morin is here this evening, as well as my colleague, Jenna Wenzel, to assist with answering any questions. The property that's subject to the application is 305 Colonel Phillips Drive. So you can see the location of the property here on the south side of Colonel Phillips Drive, west of Owentown Street. There's an existing commercial plaza in the property, which you're probably all familiar with. There's three buildings on the property. The Tim Hortons on the east side, the large commercial retail unit building along the southwesterly edge, and then the subject building that would be used for the childcare center is located in the northwest corner. All access to the property is via the south side of Colonel Phillips Drive, and this property has been subject of previous applications, including site plan approval and a condominium application, which only applied to the long, narrow building. You can see the existing conditions here. This is a shot of the side of the building facing Colonel Phillips with the front oriented more to the plaza. Currently, Streams Community Hub operates from within the building. We've just shown the rear area beside the building at the westerly edge of the property here, as some of that space is proposed to be fenced for the outdoor play area. So we do have floor plans for the building from the prior applications and when Streams moved into the building. The building is fairly well suited for the proposed use with a couple of classrooms, a large one and a smaller one in the building, fairly good sized kitchen, as well as 3 washrooms, 2 of them with multiple stalls, including a universal accessible washroom. There's a lounge waiting and reception area in near the front and an office as well. Around the back, there is some exterior fencing that would be proposed to enclose the child care center for outdoor play. And that's just shown on this slide here, where the applicant has outlined in green the proposed area where they would have access out the back of the building. The proposal is to connect some chain link fencing to the existing town-owned fence that's along the property line. The land immediately to the west is used for part of the town's stormwater management facility, and that's the restricted access driveway. But there is a black chain link fence right along the property line, which makes this area easy to enclose for an outdoor area. We don't have the full details of what that outdoor play area would look like for the child care center, but we did visit that area just to make sure that it would be suitable for it. Most of that is determined through the licensing process and not so much a zoning issue, but we will request further details from the applicant as if this application is approved, if indeed they move forward with the proposal. There are a couple of sanitary manholes. We reviewed this with engineering that, those don't necessarily pose any kind of safety issue or anything, but access would need to be maintained for the overall property owner in case of the need for repair. The applicant has said that would not be a problem. There is an easement along Colonel Phillips Drive for an existing hydro transformer, and Hydro One has advised that if there's any fencing proposed adjacent to that easement, there would be some securities required on their part, just to make sure that if there was any accidental damage to the hydro facility or the underground hydro lines in that location, that the owner is responsible for repairing that at their cost. There is a concrete walkway along the back of the building, and we've just shown 2 black triangles here where there's 2 rear doors to access directly into the rear yard area. As I mentioned, the property is proposed for rezoning. It would be a site-specific C3-1 zone. We're not proposing a general amendment to the bylaw where all C3 zoned properties would be permitted to use the childcare use. Because there are some uses that potentially could not work well with that, such as automotive uses and auto repair garages and that kind of thing. None of that is on this site, and it is a suitable site for the use based on the building and the existing uses there. There is a cannabis retail facility, but the province dictates the licensing of that and doesn't require any specific separation from daycare facilities for that, only from schools. This being a daycare, though, it would be a securable space that the operators could ensure that the children are kept either within the building or in the outdoor play area, or they are proposing that if the outdoor play area doesn't quite meet their needs, there is the option through the licensing to get approval to take children, say, to the park down the street, which is just kitty corner to the site. So this would be a site-specific rezoning. I mentioned the Hydro One requirements, so I won't repeat them here. There's just some conditions that would have to be addressed through the details as the license is secured and if the zoning is approved. And that's the end of my presentation, so I'll stop sharing the slides. Aside from the Hydro One submission, we didn't get any other significant agency comments, a lot of comments indicating no concern and no comment, and there haven't been any public comments or concerns to date, but we are here for the public meeting to receive any further public questions or comments. So with that, I'll pause there and open it up to questions. Thank you.
Okay. Questions from council for Steve? Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thanks. So that's great because I kind of wasn't sure when I was looking at the plan earlier there, the public notice or whatnot, where it was actually going to go. Have they mentioned anything about snow removal or storage for that back area? Like, are they just going to sort of like over the fence into the lot behind it? Like, I just wasn't sure where that's going to go because they're obviously going to have to keep that area clear for the kids to get out there and play.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Wagner, we did ask a question about snow removal and snow storage to the applicant as part of the review, and a couple of things were noted. One, that walkway at the back would be kept clear in any event, but if snow accumulates too much in the outdoor play area or on the site generally, they have a requirement under the site plan agreement for the property to remove it. And I believe they found in the past winter they have had to do that, bring in vehicles to remove snow because there's only so much snow you can store while keeping your parking fully accessible.
Yeah.
This back area, though, isn't, other than shoveling off the walkway along the back of the building, it wasn't particularly used for snow storage from the parking area because it isn't directly connected to it. So we were satisfied that it didn't displace any existing snow storage and that they have sufficient requirements and provisions in place to remove the snow if there's excessive snow.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking, like, I actually wasn't thinking too much about the parking lot issue, just the fact that they wouldn't have been using that space in general behind the building, so snow would be accumulating there and it wouldn't really be a big deal. But now that they are going to be using that space, that snow will now have to go somewhere. So I just wasn't sure where that particular snow was going to go, and it would obviously be on a regular basis as well. So I just hope that they know that there might be the potential for more I guess trucks to come in and potentially remove that snow in the back area. Other than that, I think that's all I was worried about.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Were there any public members logged on for this, Jennifer?
No, sir.
No? Okay. All right. So the recommendation included for us to consider reads as follows: be it resolved, the council receive report P 2026-05 as information, and that subject to the consideration of any input received at the public meeting, bylaw 17-2026 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 38-2007 as amended by rezoning the lands known municipally as 301, 303, and 305 Colonel Phillips Drive, and described legally as Block 244, Plan 7M56, Town of Shelburne, County of Dufferin, from Service Commercial C3 zone to Service Commercial Exception C3-1 zone, as shown on Schedule A1 to the bylaw, be approved. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Wagner. Any final discussion on that one? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Thank you, Steve. All right, that moves us on to our public participation portion of the meeting. Is there anybody logged on for question period?
No, sir.
No. And no questions were submitted prior to the meeting?
No, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, we have two proclamations this evening. The first is for Sexual Violence Prevention Month. Whereas Sexual Violence Prevention Month is intended to raise awareness about sexual violence and its impact on all levels of society, and whereas sexual violence is widespread and impacts people of all ages, genders, and ethnicities, and whereas 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience sexual violence in their life, and whereas sexual violence includes any type of sexual activity without consent, consent must be clearly given and can be taken back at any moment. And whereas we must support survivors of all types of sexual violence by offering compassion, non-judgment, and access to services for healing. And whereas we must advocate for policies and practices that prevent sexualized violence from occurring and support survivors. And whereas with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, we can be successful in fostering a culture of deep respect, empathy, and integrity where sexual violence is not tolerated at any level. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Wade Mills, on behalf of Council, do hereby proclaim May 2026 as Sexual Violence Prevention Month in the town of Shelburne, and urge all citizens to stay educated on issues of consent, boundaries, and healthy relationships. The second proclamation, which isn't included in the agenda, but it's not the first year that we've done this, is for MS Awareness Month. And I believe that our local MS ambassador, James Jackson, has joined us. So after I read the proclamation, I'll let James offer a word or two if he likes. And that proclamation reads as follows: whereas multiple sclerosis is a chronic, often disabling neurological disease affecting an estimated 1 in 400 Canadians and approximately 90,000 across the country. And whereas MS symptoms vary widely and may lead to problems with numbness, coordination, vision, and speech, as well as extreme fatigue and even paralysis. And whereas there is no known cure of, prevention of, or cure, no known cause of, prevention of, or cure for MS. And whereas the MS Society of Canada is the only national organization in Canada that supports both MS research and services for people with MS and their families. Annual fundraising events such as the MS Walk, MS Bike, and A&W Canada's Burgers to Beat MS campaign support programs to enhance the lives of people affected by MS and their families and support MS research in Canada. And whereas since 1948, the MS Society of Canada has contributed $200 million towards MS research and is grateful for the dedication and commitment of its supporters and volunteers that has made this possible. And whereas together we will find ways to enhance the quality of lives for people affected by MS and to find a cure to end MS. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Wade Mills, on behalf of Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2026 as MS Awareness Month in the town of Shelburne. And I understand that Mr. Jackson will be joining us here in Shelburne at 11 a.m. on May 6th, which is next Wednesday.
I do believe so.
For a flag raising for MS awareness. So with that, James, would you like to offer a word or two? No pressure.
Thank you very much. I would turn on the video, but for some reason the video is not working.
Okay.
I do thank you very much for doing the proclamation. It means a lot to I'm getting choked up. It means a lot to me and to the people that I represent and to MS Canada. It is, and as you said, it's all about bringing the awareness. Yes, and I look forward to seeing everybody on the 6th and for the flag raising.
Great. Let's hope for some sunshine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Council inquiries. Are there any inquiries for this evening? Councillor Gashardi.
Yeah, just a quick one for Jim about parking signage in Highland Village. If we can get an update, please.
Sure. Through your worship, we did assume the Highland Village development over the course of the winter, so we couldn't really get out there and install the signs with the winter we had. It was one of the throwbacks to a good old-fashioned winter. Staff have been out and they've measured out the number of signs, how far from the intersections or corners that we need. We do have the signs in the post ordered, and as soon as we have those, staff is going to go out and install them with our Vector trailer that we have at operations there. So it should be shortly. It doesn't take long for those to come in, so it should be within the next few weeks anyway. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thanks. I just remembered one. This message or this question, I guess, would be for Jim as well. Just wondering if we have any plans to repair, I guess, or repave the entrance to the parking lot behind Jack Dowling Park. There's like a little bit when you first kind of go to drive into it, it's not really nice. So, and I've seen some people trying to get in there and they're sort of, they have to go. Not that I mind that they have to go slow, but it's like, yeah, it's not nice. So I just wasn't sure if at any point we had plans to sort of just level that out a bit better or patch that area.
Through your worship, we did, believe it was last year, we repaved that whole section going in through there. I believe the broken up part is part of Canada Post's driveway, which normally falls underneath those, although our staff did catch that while they're out doing coal patching in our hot box, just as it is right off of the sidewalk as well. We didn't want anybody to roll an ankle or something. So we I believe we've already taken care of it, but if not, it should be right shortly because that did come up Friday with operations.
Perfect. Okay, you guys beat me to it. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. All right. So the first report we have this evening is a report from our town planner regarding an application for a sign bylaw variance request at 108 Ojibway Road. Steve, are you, Jenna, you're going to field this one?
Steve had to drop off, so bear with me. I haven't
Okay.
done one of these in a while, but I will. I'll do my best here.
All right, over to you.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I don't use Zoom very much here. There we go. Okay, can we see that, everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
We're good.
Okay, yes, thank you. So yeah, we have an application for, it is, I guess we would call them tower signs, by Steel Art Signs located at 801 Ojibway Road. This is part of the Fieldgate subdivision with a commercial area. So as you can see here, located, this is the existing Fieldgate block, and this is 217. The building that is being that is at this site here, they're being constructed in phases. So right now the building here is the portion closest to Highway 89. As I mentioned, they are for tower signs. So there's technically two tower signs. So one on the east and one on the west side of the tower. Here is what is being proposed or what was submitted as part of the sign permit application. They previously, I should mention, they did come forward for another company had provided a sign variance application for the entire site. essentially. So included in that was this, there's Scotiabank signs. There's currently a Scotiabank sign on the north, the south, and the west elevation, just with the Scotiabank lettering. And these tower signs are additional signs being applied for. That came out of the council meeting in March, where there were some concerns that were raised at that meeting by council as well as a member of the public. So one of the items that is the concern, I'll go over everything, but one of the items was the illumination levels. This was a view here that Steve Weaver, our town planner, took when he was in Shelburne for that council meeting. And just looking at it, there is high levels of illumination, at least from what we can see. And council had noted some concerns with that, as well as there was a member of the public there as well that had raised concern about the illumination. And as you can see, the Scotiabank signs that were approved with that variance are also illuminated along with the tower signs. So one of the things that we reviewed is in the block on the other side of the street, part of the Fieldgate commercial subdivision area. We do already have tower signs. It's kind of something that we had to review on a case-by-case basis, just because the sign bylaw doesn't actually have these regulations. So we do already have some here. As you can see, there's the Starbucks logo as well as the McDonald's logo. We do have a breakdown here. We reviewed it just to kind of see. We wanted to see how they were in comparison to the other signs that have already been reviewed. And the one major item that we realized with the Scotiabank that makes things a little bit different is the tower area. So the tower area is 12 square meters. So although the sign, like it's about double what we have for the Starbucks logo signs existing, and it is a bit closer in sign area to the McDonald's. But the issue that we came across was that the scale is a bit large, just given the size of these towers on the building. And the towers were approved as part of the architectural drawings for when the building was initially gone through. It's of course already been approved and permitted. However, at that time, we don't review any signs. There is a note on those permits stating that any signage would be in addition, an additional permit. So although it was approved and we can understand the intention, it wasn't something that we initially reviewed at that point in time. So as far as our recommendations go, just given the concerns that we've had as from the public as well as from what council brought up last meeting, was so we recommend to receive report P 2026-06 for information, and that the requested sign variance be denied. Reason being is that the two logo signs were installed prior to council consideration of the variance without municipal sign and building permits. In our opinion, the signs are unduly large and bright, and the cumulative impact of the number and scale of signs with a total of 5 business signs, including those 3 fascia signs for the Scotiabank lettering, as well as 2 tower logo signs. And requested degree of variance results in excessive signage and is not warranted for the area, and considering the nature of the business being a bank, which does not rely on prominent signage to attract customers from traffic passing by. So that is the end, I believe. Yes, the end of my presentation. Thank you. And yeah, open to any questions. I will also note we do have the applicant, I think one representative from Steel Art Signs is on the call, as well as we do have a few from Scotiabank as well that could answer any specifics to the signage and whatnot.
Okay. Any questions from council for Jenna first? Okay. So who do we have from Steel Art?
Good evening. My name is Boris Kaminsky. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing from Steel Art Signs. Unfortunately, Christine could not attend. She's ill.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add briefly?
A few things. First, I apologize that the tower signs have been installed prior to permit. That information was not provided to me. However, from my understanding was there was MTO permits that were required, and that was holding up the permit process at the time, and everything based on the information that was provided to me from our permit department that everything was okay, and it was only the MTO permit that was being, I guess, that the city was waiting for. And then it was brought to my attention after that the tower signs were too large. Based on the information that we were provided and that I looked at back on, I believe during the building permit process, there was documents, and I believe Jenna, you mentioned it. There was a document submitted during the building permit process showing the signage and the towers, and that tower was built based on size of letter S, based on what was expected. Unfortunately, during that process, like you said, signs I guess are not reviewed. Part of the process. It's only the building. I guess at that point it would have been good to know that these tower signs, if a 6-foot tower sign was not allowed or permissible, that the tower signs may have been constructed smaller in size, right? We also have Debbie Scrivers here from Scotiabank. She handles the signage program. I don't know if Debbie, you want to add something else to that on the branding side of Scotiabank, and obviously, your experience on tower signs amongst other cities.
For sure. Thanks, Boris. So the 6-foot logo that we see on the tower is actually the smallest logo in our branding program. And we go up from there from a 7 to an 8-footer. So for us, this was not something unusual. And again, the tower was sized, and as we see in your analysis, Jenna, we're sitting at 25%, which is in line with Starbucks and smaller than McDonald's in overall proportion of logo to tower. So I had Boris's team render, before this meeting, a couple of options that we just wouldn't even want to consider, a 3-footer, a 4-footer, and I think it would look like a mistake if we went any smaller on that logo. Now, the illumination, and I'm not sure if we're talking about the same citizen, but we did have Jonathan Best come and meet with our branch manager with a concern on the illumination. I believe he lives across the highway just on the other side. And he alerted us that the signs were on all night, and that wasn't our intention. And within 24 hours of that notice, we had an electrician go and reprogram the timer. Those signs now turn off at 11 p.m. And so they're on from basically 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. And I think he's coming to our grand opening. So we're looking to that. Currently, the signs aren't dimmable. That's not an option that's built into them. They are built with LEDs that would be standard in the sign industry, and what we would find in any sign that's going to go up in that block. I would think we don't change our LEDs based on. Very rarely do we actually have a municipality that asks us to dim an external sign or make it less bright. Just over time, they're going to naturally decrease in brilliance just as the LEDs age. But if we start with less, we feel that it would look like a mistake. I did take an opportunity, you know, Scotiabank celebrates all of their grand openings and new branch openings, and our design team is actually very proud of it, and stating in our internal postcard that they believe that it's contemporary presence that reinforces brand recognition while integrating seamlessly into the surrounding community. So, you know, when our designers designed it, they really believed they were adding highly legible branch identity and position the building as a recognizable landmark within the plaza. So again, our signs aren't facing the residential of Emerald Crossing, where the tower is perpendicular. They'll be viewed from Highway 89, traveling each way. And I think it would serve almost for us as our pylon sign, which, you know, as people are traveling into town, if without those logos or with a diminished logo, I think they're going to have could almost miss that intersection at that point and turn back. But anyway, I do know Shelburne a little bit. I'm just to the east of you in Alliston, so I know the town well.
Thanks. Jenna, just to clarify the distinction, I mean, as I understand it, there's a couple of different layers of permitting required, and Boris spoke to this. But just to clarify so that everybody's on the same page, there are MTO permits for signage. There is a building permit required for the tower structure itself. And if I understand you correctly, you said at that stage, when that's reviewed, the sign component that ultimately gets installed on that tower isn't reviewed. And there is a separate sign permit that has to be applied for and approved as well, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The building, when it was put up, or when the initial building was applied for, sorry, they had a tower on it, like you'd be able to see it on the elevations for the architectural set that was submitted. So at that time, the entire building, including that tower, would have been reviewed and approved by the building department and ourselves in planning. However, like normally when people submit applications for a new building, they will show signage or like future signage or something like that. Just to kind of, I think it's just kind of a standard thing that they do. However, in the town as a standard for us, we don't ever review signage at that point in time, just because we aren't sure who the exact tenants are going to be. Sometimes they're purpose built, but sometimes the tenants don't come until later on. So we don't really want to have anything approved and then it changed down the line or something like that. So at that point in time, we would have approved the building permit along with the county. And then they came in with their sign permit applications with those 5 signs, including a few small incidental signs like for the ATM and things like that, which don't have to have a permit per se for those specific items. The MTO does require a sign permit. So all of those signs that are facing the highway there, they all require an MTO permit. So that is something that they did obtain. But in part with that, just because you have an MTO permit doesn't mean you have a permit to put things up. And there is some confusion there. I can certainly understand that with applicants, we do have to have conversations to explain the process. So it can be a little bit confusing in that regard. But yes, there is an MTO permit required for the sign as well as the building permit in conjunction with the municipal approval.
Okay.
And Jenna, sorry to interrupt, but Jenna, I understand it's the building signage. If we were to remove the tower signage and just reapply for the building signage, we would have had permit for that. It's just the tower signage we're speaking about that requires that there was issues with, correct?
Sorry, are you speaking of the Scotiabank, the lettering right now? Yes. So those ones, although those were also put up without a permit as well, but they were reviewed. Like we haven't reviewed them separately yet, I don't think, unless we have.
Yeah, because I had it in.
We took the towers out, right? Yes, you took the towers out of that one after the variance meeting.
Because there was a email that was sent to Christine that I pulled out, and it said, if you reapply without the tower signage, we can issue the building permit immediately for the other signs, and then just address the tower signage on a separate. And she's away, so I wasn't able to get more information about that at the time. So.
Yes, the signs, we had said we had given a few options for how to proceed, and one of the option was just to remove the tower signs from that overall sign package so that we could continue with the approval of those Scotiabank, the 3 fascia signs on the Scotiabank.
Okay. All right. Any further comments or questions from council? Councillor Gashardi?
Yeah, I just want to note one sentence in the letter we received from Steel Art Signs, and it's in paragraph 1 that basically states as follows, and I quote, "Reducing the logo size would result in a non-compliant application that does not meet the corporate brand requirements." Well, we're not here to necessarily, I mean, there's a conflict between corporate brand requirements and town signage requirements. And that seems to be the main crux of the issue here. Had they applied for a permit in advance, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. Just to point that out. So that sentence kind of popped out at me as being a little ahead of the game. You know what I mean?
I understand, and from my understanding, again, was we thought that based on the tower signage size and the original application of the building, that this was all reviewed prior. Because when I looked at the application of the building, it had the signage on the towers, and I thought that all the branding was reviewed already. But it turned out that Jenna said they don't review the branding, right, during the building application.
Yeah, I think that much we've clarified. Councillor Fegan?
If I could speak up, is that all right? Sorry.
No. Yeah, no.
Not yet?
One of our councillors has the floor here. Councillor Fegan?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question for Debbie. You mentioned that reducing the luminance of the LEDs is not normally done, and I caught that you said that it sounded like you have done it in the past, just not very often. Is there a possibility of reducing the luminance of the sign?
Yeah, so we haven't done it in the past. We've done it on interior signs where, the lighting could be a little more intense inside. On the exterior, I think, in chatting with Boris, it is something that can be done. We'd have to change some of the electrical components within the sign and to make them dimmable. So that is something. Now it would have less illumination than the other signs. Again, maybe looking like it needs service. So we'd have to really kind of look at what that looks like. But, turning them off at 11 p.m. we thought was a good compromise to that.
Well, the question that I would have is I wouldn't want your branding to look different. I mean, branding is obviously got to be consistent across the board. When I'm talking about reducing the illumination, I'm talking about not only the S, but also the Scotiabank logos themselves.
Yeah, I mean, again, it would be, I don't think Boris can maybe speak to the technical side of that. It is doable with rework of the signs.
If you'd like, I can explain the process. The drivers in the sign need to be replaced with dimmable LED drivers, and then we would have to mount dimmers for each sign, and they would have to be set to a certain, it would be, if you have 1 to 10, you can set it to 7, 6, depending on. Yeah, but Debbie is correct that there's times when you do use dimmable drivers, and it can look like that your sign needs service. and it doesn't look that great. So,
Okay.
What the,
All right.
the
Well, thank you all for the added input here. Are there any further comments or questions from council? Okay. So the staff recommendation obviously is that the requested variance under the sign bylaw be denied. The summary essentially says that it creates visual impacts, does not uphold the intent of the sign bylaw with respect to consistency and fairness within the commercial area. So I mean that is staff's recommendation, but ultimately it is up to this council as to what we decide to do. Is there somebody who would like to make a motion?
I would like to speak up if that's all
No.
right.
Sorry, no, we're gonna
Okay.
move along here. Any counselor wanting to make a motion on this?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay. So Counselor Bernardo is moving the staff recommendation essentially that the report be received and that the request for the variance be denied. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Gashardi.
I think the reason I'm willing to move it is that gives them an opportunity to meet with our staff again and work out a proper compromise.
Okay. Well, I guess the other option, Counselor Bernardo, if that's what you're looking for, is that that the matter could be deferred. Jenna, do you see any value in that and allowing some of these discussions to continue?
Yeah, to you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I spoke with Steve earlier today, and he said that an option could be to defer and have some more conversation with the applicant instead of just outright doing the refusal. I will say we had conversation. It seems to be that Scotiabank is a bit more open and Steel Art to reducing the levels of the illumination at this point, which is definitely appreciated. However, at this point, it's still the size as well. So that is something in our decision, our recommendation for the decision. So if that's the case, then that would be what we're expecting is a conversation on both items.
Okay. On that basis, then, Councillor Bernardo, are you
I'm
okay to?
okay to defer it then.
Okay. Councillor Gashardi, you're good with that as well? Okay.
Yeah, I'll defer.
Madam Clerk, do you want a motion to defer?
We can simply amend the current motion.
Okay. Receive the report and defer it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Councillor Wagner, sorry, I saw you had your hand up as well.
That's okay. No, thanks. I was torn, and just because, I mean, clearly we are appreciative of having Scotiabank come to our town. You know, it's definitely a benefit for our town and our people who live here. My concern was the illumination as well. I drove by, it's quite bright. So, I mean, I don't think we need to be lowering it to a level where Scotia is not noticeable when you drive by, but I do think there needs to be a little bit of a reduction in that illumination. I appreciate very much that you are willing to shut them off at 11 for the residents who are across the street off of 89. So that's amazing that you're willing, you know, again, to work with us with that. So that's why I couldn't make the motion to completely deny it. But I'm glad that you guys brought up the deferred method where we can just continue a little bit more conversation. I don't know. Personally, I don't think there's much we can do about the size. It's up now, and it is what it is. But you know, a little bit more communication and talking about it is definitely a good idea, just to see where we can come up with a reasonable compromise. So yeah, so thanks so much for suggesting that, and that way I can now vote moving forward.
Okay. Yeah, I think personally I feel a little more comfortable allowing for some further discussion on this too, because I do think there's probably some room for a common sense constructive solution here. So on that basis, we do have a motion on the floor, moved by Benado, seconded by Gashardi, to receive the report and defer the matter to allow for additional conversation. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I
And
guess
we can
see
work
you-
with that.
See you back here at some point soon. Thanks.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So the next item is a bylaw for council's consideration, which is the standard bylaw to strike the rates of taxation and to provide for penalty and interest in default of payment for the year 2026. Carrie, did you want to speak to this one at all?
Thank you, through the mayor. This is just the regular bylaw that we pass every year for the collection of the final billing that coincides with what we adopted at budget time. So this represents 5% increase in the tax rate.
All right. Can I have a motion to authorize that bylaw? Moved by Deputy Mayor Hall, seconded by Councillor Fegan. All in favor? That's carried. All right, the next one is a bylaw to authorize the town of Shelburne to enter into an agreement with the province of Ontario regarding, but I guess better to say it's for the transfer agreement regarding the $35 million funding announcement under the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund that we talked about at the last meeting. So I hope everybody's supportive of this one. Can I have a mover and seconder to authorize that? Councillor Benado, seconded by Councillor Fegan. All in favor? That's carried. And lastly is a bylaw to authorize us to enter into an agreement with the Shelburne Public Library for the purpose of providing library services. And this, again, is just the standard one that we do each year as well, correct? Yeah. Okay, is there a mover and seconder for that one? Councillor Wagner, seconded by Councillor Gashardi. All right, all in favor? And that's carried. All right, any notices of motion for this evening? Councillor Gashardi.
You're muted.
There, that's better. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to bring forward a notice of motion opposing the provincial omnibus bill referred to as Bill 97. And I did distribute a printed copy of this to everyone earlier on. Reads as follows: whereas the Council of the Town of Shelburne is committed to principles of transparency, accountability, and open access to information for all residents. And whereas freedom of information legislation is a vital tool that enables municipalities, journalists, and the public to access government records and to ensure accountability in decision-making. And whereas the Government of Ontario has introduced and now passed an omnibus bill, Bill 97, that includes significant changes to FOI laws, including provisions that may retroactively limit public access to certain government records. And whereas these proposed changes may restrict the ability of the town of Shelburne to access provincial information necessary for informed planning, infrastructure coordination, environmental stewardship, and advocacy on behalf of its residents. And whereas the omnibus nature of the legislation combines multiple unrelated policy changes, including those affecting conservation authorities and land use planning, which have a direct implications for growing communities such as Shelburne. And whereas the expedited legislative process, including limited or bypassed committee hearings, reduced opportunities for municipalities like Shelburne to provide meaningful input on policies that directly impact the local governance. And whereas such action risks undermining public trust in government institutions and weakens the principles of open, transparent governance across all levels of government, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Shelburne formally opposes the proposed changes to the freedom of information laws contained within the provincial omnibus bill, and that council calls on the government of Ontario to withdraw or amend the legislation preserving strong transparency and accountability measures, and that the province be urged to restore full legislative committee review and provide meaningful opportunities for municipal and public consultation on all components of the bill, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Finance, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and local members of provincial parliament and relevant municipal associations, including AMO, and that the resolution be circulated to neighboring municipalities and within Dufferin County for endorsement. I'd also like to ask that we waive the motion portion of this motion so we can.
Provincial, the procedural bylaw.
The notice
sorry.
requirement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So to waive the notice requirement, it requires unanimous consent. So I typically do that when we're online, just by asking if anybody's opposed to waiving that. Okay. Don't see any hands shooting up. So in that case, is there a seconder for Councillor Guichardi's motion? Councillor Bernardo? Okay. So the motion's on the floor. Any discussion? Councillor Bernardo?
If we were to adopt something similar in our council for our municipality, we'd be screamed at by everybody around us. So for the province to do that, only to protect certain materials which affect maybe one or two people in the whole of the provincial legislature, makes it ridiculous. I think that this is a joke, and I think that all municipalities should support this. So I'm quite proud to second the motion and thankful that Councillor Guichardi brought it forward.
Councillor Wagner?
Yeah, I didn't get my hand up fast enough because Bernardo likes to be first. But no, I agree. This is absolutely ridiculous and disgusting behavior set by any member of leadership or politician, party, whatever. This is the whole issue with regards to transparency, and as Councillor Bernardo said, if we did something like that here at the municipal level, we would be, in big trouble. So like to have a provincial government set for something like this is just, it's shocking. So yeah, I definitely agree with this. I think anyone within the provincial government that voted yes to this should be investigated, because anyone who does not want transparency in a leadership role shouldn't be in a leadership role.
I'll just add a piece of personal commentary as well. I find it a little disingenuous when the province actually legislates requirements for municipalities under the Municipal Act when it comes to accountability and transparency. It just seems kind of do as I say, not as I do. And I think the province should be leading by example when it comes to this sort of thing. So I have absolutely no problem supporting this, and thank Councillor Guichardi for bringing this motion forward. Any final comments, Councillor Fegan?
Actually, I think I'd like to call for a recorded vote on this one.
Sure. Okay. All right. Recorded vote has been requested.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate yes or no. Councillor Bernardo?
Yes.
Councillor Fegan?
Yes.
Councillor Guichardi?
Yes.
Councillor Wagner?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hall? And
you're muted.
Yes.
There you go.
That come through?
Yes. Mayor Mills?
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Any other notices of motion? No, okay. All right, anything from the communications list that anybody wants to pull out? Councillor Fegan, Councillor Wagner, and then Councillor Bernardo.
Yeah, I'd like to pull at number 5.
Okay.
So this is correspondence from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, talking about emergency room wait times and our quality of health care within the province. There's a slew of whereases with this letter. Basically, the long and the short of this is I'd like to add a letter of support for this and send this obviously to Minister of Health, to the Office of Doug Ford, to all municipalities and counties as well within Ontario.
Okay. Motion of support. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Wagner. Okay. All in favor? That's carried. All right. Just the one, Councillor Fegan? Okay, Councillor Wagner.
Great, thank you. I wasn't sure if it was something that we would need to sort of have a motion of support for number 3, because it's already a county initiative, like for the requesting of the full report for Highway 10 and its traffic study. So I wasn't sure if that was something that would help if we supported that too, or if it's already strong enough being from the county.
I would suggest that we do. I'm trying to remember. I think I maybe seconded the motion at county, but I mean, obviously, a portion of this cuts right through our municipality. So certainly in our case, I think adding our voice to this is significant. So yeah, please go ahead and make a motion of support.
Perfect, good. Like I said, I wasn't sure if it would
Yeah.
strengthen it, but yeah, we definitely need the full report. That's crazy that we haven't even received it. So, yeah, if we could do that, that would be wonderful, and send it off to wherever it needs to go.
Okay. All right. So moved by Councillor Wagner. Is there a seconder for that one? Councillor Cashardi. Okay. All in favor? That's carried. All right. Councillor
Perfect.
Bernardo.
Mine is number 6, the correspondence from our MPP, and it's regarding Ontario Senior of the Year nominations, making sure that that goes out to the public, and if we can get maybe a senior that's done considerable amount of work being nominated. I'm sure there are some. I see some working at the food bank and other places, so I'm sure that there's a Senior of the Year somewhere out there in Shelburne that should be nominated.
Yep. Okay. Is that something perhaps that we could? Well, I'm actually just looking here. The deadline for submissions was April 15th. So, yeah. We didn't have an awful lot of lead time on it.
Okay. That's something we miss every year, so I'm wondering if it's something that we can make sure in the future, whether we have a council meeting or not, that it does go out.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. And I was just going to pull item number 2, which is the 2025 annual report from the Shelburne and District Fire Department. Only to highlight this for council and the community that's maybe watching this meeting. So Chief Pratt put together this annual report. We do receive annual reports every year. This one in particular for last year, I think was pretty substantial and had a lot of really good information, which highlights a lot of the great work that our men and women are doing with Shelburne Fire Department. So if you haven't had a chance yet to take a look at it, I would suggest that you do that. Beyond that, is there anything else in communications, or can we just have a motion to receive the remaining items? Councillor Bernardo, seconder for that. Councillor Wagner. Okay. motion to receive those items. All in favor? That's carried. All right, next is our closed session. So I look for a motion that pursuant to section 239 sub 2 of the Municipal Act, subsection K, council enters into closed session to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or a local board. Mover and seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Hall, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, so we'll just give staff a few minutes to move us into closed session.